You are listening to the Enormocast.
So what's your tired excuse for not wearing a helmet? Too heavy? Not anymore. Too hot? You literally wear a beanie in your sweltering climbing gym, bro. Too dumb looking? Well, you might have me there. But you know what else is dumb looking? A cracked skull. Yes, 25 years ago, all those excuses might have had legs. But Black Diamond's modern helmets shut them all down. The new redesigned Half Dome is durable, lightweight, lower profile, and sports an improved chin strap and better headlamp clips. It's just a great modern climbing helmet. And it comes at a price point 1/10 of 1% of your average ER visit. But listen, we here at the Enormocast really just want you to consider getting your freaking brain wrapped in a helmet. And while we'd love for you to support Black Diamond, end up in a Half Dome, or the racier Vector or Vapor, frankly, there's a lot of great lightweight helmets out there, and it's time to reconsider your prejudices for the old brain bucket. So support the Enormocast by checking out Black Diamond's redesigned Half Dome and all their helmets at blackdiamondequipment.com or your favorite local shop. But if you don't find what you like there, look around and get your brain behind some foam and plastic before it's too late.
Are you stuck in the partner zone, where that person you climb with is blithely unaware of your electric longing that's telegraphing through that stiff gym rope? Does she think of you as just another dude she schools in the bouldering cave? Does he tell his friends you're just like one of the guys? Well, break out of the partner zone and let that person know that your rock is in a hard place with a special gift from peterwgilroy.com. Because if you thought making sure her chalk bag was always full, or buying him a set of cams for his half birthday would bring out the passion, you're wrong. Do it the right way and go to peterwgilroy.com for rock-inspired jewelry and accessories that say, to me, you're more than just a solid belay, baby. And of course, remember to enter Enormo at checkout for a discount.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? Are you playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
big
house. We
place,
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000
seats.
We really should.
Look, you better get up there before he panics. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Bad weather. Now or later, anytime for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is August 30th, about 10 o'clock here in Colorado, and this is episode 182 of the Enormocast, a conversation with young trad and sport climber Molly Mitchell. So yeah, it's August 30th, which means that summer is winding down, and that overused pun is on everybody's lips. September. But you know what? September is a bit of a casualty of climate change. The last few Septembers I remember have been just as hot as the rest of the summer. And in fact, projected here, at least in Carbondale, on Sunday the 1st, is going to be 91 degrees, which is one of the hotter days of the entire summer. So I don't know what's going to happen later in the month, but maybe that pun needs a reboot of some type. Go to Canada. I bet you it's going to be cool in Canada in September. And they use Celsius, so who even knows what the temperature is? Now, Rocktober, that's a pun we can all get behind, right? Am I right? Rocktober. We are an imaginative bunch, aren't we, climbers? Before we get to the interview, I do want to mention that I have a shop, an online shop, over at enormocast.com that sells t-shirts and hats. Hats are custom Enormocast design by Peter Gilroy. Very cool, very titanium. And the shirts are designed by a buddy from high school, way back from high school. And they're printed in a shop in Boise, Idaho that belongs to the family of Tracy Wilson, who's been on the show. I think she was on a listener mail show, as well as one of the more famous early shows, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. Go back and check that one out. Pre-Me Too, that one. But it prefaced Me Too movement a little bit. Anyhow, check those out, and if you want to support the Enormocast, go get a shirt or a hat. And remember, stickers, we don't sell stickers. Stickers are always free. So if you want a sticker, just send your address to chris@enormocast.com with your address in the email, hopefully printed as it would be on the envelope, especially if you are sending that from overseas where the addresses are not parsed out the same way they are here in the United States. I have no idea. So yeah, put them in there the way they should be on the envelope. That makes my life easier because I can cut and paste. If that seems like a pain or nitpicky, then remember, you're getting free stickers. Do what I ask. Okay, on to the interview with Molly Mitchell. I met Molly Mitchell a couple years ago, and even on my first impression, was sort of captivated by her enthusiasm. We'll call it enthusiasm. You'll hear it in the interview. And since that time, she's sort of emerged as this really crack trad climber and sport climber, as well as emerging as a professional climber in just the last couple of years. I know she's been around for a bit, but really come on strong in the last couple of years. And I don't have too much to tell you that's not in the interview, except that she sort of mentions a little bit of a project in the interview that she doesn't name, but it turned out that she was working on China Doll, a famous hard climb in Boulder Canyon that was led on bolts and then was led without the bolts, and now people can do either one. It was one of those climbs that got led with gear but didn't get chopped, which in a lot of ways is the right way to do things. Now you have a choice. So she led it as a sport climb, and then she recently sent it as a trad climb as well. And the rating is kind of hard to pin down. I couldn't actually figure it out. 13 plus, maybe 14A. I don't know what she called it, but it's also got an R rating and some pretty hard climbing above really small gear. So awesome job, and another feather in Molly Mitchell's trad climbing hat, which is actually quite majestic when you see her in it, let me tell you. And last but not least, Molly wanted me to mention that she's going to be at the Facelift, the Yosemite Facelift at the end of September, presenting one night. She wasn't certain which night it is, but if you end up there, go check out what Molly's got to say. And now let's find out what she has to say on the Enormocast. I've been obsessing with the name Otaki since Sportiva released the slick blue shoe a couple years ago. Rhymes with souvlaki. In Japanese, it apparently means cascade. And there's an old Maori town in New Zealand called Otaki. What exactly are you up to, Sportiva? So in the spirit of etymological adventure, I started climbing in them despite my unsavory fetish for the caress of a slightly worn pair of Miras. And I gotta say, for sport climbing and really techie trad, I'm sold. I'm also sold on the name of the only color choice, Blue Flame. Cha-cha. But mostly, I smile at the comfort to performance ratio. Like any tightly fit shoe, a pair of Otakis are not exactly a lavender bubble bath, but of course with Sportiva's dedication to the craft, the Otakis slide on without any annoying stitch bumps and hot spots and remain tight where it matters. So if you want performance, perfect fit, and a shoe that rhymes with savory skewered meats, check out the Otaki at Sportiva.com or your favorite local shop. Kali Arexi.
Oh, that's a cool hat.
Thanks. You want one? I'll send you one.
Yeah?
Okay.
The heck?
Remind me when we get done because there's some choices.
Ooh, how much is a hat?
Well, I sell them for that one for $45 because this is titanium.
There's titanium on that hat?
Yeah. Check it out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that'll stop a bullet. I mean,
oh, so it's like protective.
Shot from an angle, a low caliber.
Yeah.
Shot from an angle. So
it's really like a helmet.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a helmet. Anyway, I'll put you on the list.
Sick.
So,
thanks.
So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about when we met, which you didn't remember, but
What?
Well, you didn't remember all the circumstances, but I think it was it was 2 Octobers ago. actually.
Was it 2017?
Yes, because it was something of a, it was sort of a mixed bag trip for me because our friend Hayden Kennedy had just died.
Oh, right.
And this was supposed to be kind of like a trip. It wasn't, it was a couple months afterwards, and like to try to kind of go out and have some fun, and like, you know, it had been this idea of like, let's get together and we'll go out and we'll remember and we'll go climb. And so it was like kind of a weird mixed bag trip for us because I personally wasn't ready to go out and have a whole bunch of fun. But it was an okay trip. We went climbing down in St. George. But one of the things that we really wanted to do because of who he is was meet up with Bill Ramsey down in Vegas. And not, you know, just to sort of absorb whatever Bill Ramsey puts out, I thought would be good for us. So we went out and we were where were we?
At the Yard House.
At the Yard House, and you were there as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bill, I think I rented a room from Bill, so he asked me if I wanted to join.
Yeah, and you showed up, and I remember having a really good time, and it was like it was just a fun part of that trip that had like ups and downs in it, and because of Bill, he's always great to hang out with, and because of you, and we were like, wow.
Aw,
and we
thanks.
left and we were just like, yeah, man, she was awesome, that was really fun, and it was my friend Simon and Steve Dilk, and so I just wanted to pay you that compliment of having had like just a really nice time that night.
Aw, thanks.
Like,
that means so much.
In a trip where we, like I said, it had its ups and downs.
Right.
Like, you know, we were like hell bent on having fun. And when you're like trying too hard to have fun, it like doesn't always work.
Was it you
know?
guys that said that you went out in Mesquite?
Yeah, we went out.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I do remember this.
I wasn't there. I bailed before they went to Club Envy
Yes.
in Mesquite.
I remember this.
Yes, the hot nightclub. And they were there like on a Wednesday night or something too. It was like midweek, I think. It wasn't even necessarily a weekend. So
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I can't really imagine going out in Mesquite.
yeah. So I had bailed. It was late night, and they were insistent on going to Club Envy, and I was like, no, you guys have a good time. I felt I had aged out a little bit.
Yeah.
Although they went with my friend Jeff, who was actually older than me. So
Yeah, I feel like Mesquite, like, I don't really know that there's an age limit.
no.
Yeah.
No,
I feel like
mean-
it's like a lot of older people that live there.
Yeah, but I don't know who goes to this club.
Yeah.
Like
I don't
it's
know.
literally a club, like, you know, DJ kind of thing. So anyway,
That's hilarious.
And we were staying in an old folks home. Literally.
Wait, while you were in Mesquite?
Yeah, like this old folks home that kind of rents rooms as well, because we then went out for a late night shuffleboard tourney and got
Oh my God. Of course you went to shuffleboard.
and it was like we were getting yelled at because we were all being too loud by the residents at this old folks home.
Oh
So
my gosh.
anyway, so that was all part of our trip. I wanted to frame this. Let's get to you. Everybody's used to this on the Enormocast, though. It's like I just talk about myself for a little while.
No, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. But I wanted to pay you that compliment because I think it's like, I mean, when I look at your media and I look at what you're doing, like that's a big part of it is just like a really positive demeanor in terms of
Thanks.
what you put out in the world. Is that something that you're aware of, and is it conscious?
Just like always trying to be positive.
Yeah, just like, you know, you can have different as you know get into being a professional climber, you can have different kind of vibe. I mean, some are serious and like, you know, we have tested ourselves against the mountains again and survived, and you know, there's all
We
sorts
have
of different
tested ourselves.
yeah, and you know, yours is that. I mean, it's just your personality, it would appear.
Thanks. Yeah, I try to be really authentic with my social media.
Okay.
But I do, like, a lot of the times, maybe because I struggle with anxiety, but I try to like laugh things off a lot. Mm-hmm. So I do try to put out things that make people laugh, or just like, yeah, just honestly me.
Right.
I guess it probably comes off as being positive though, but I do just I share my struggles as well. So try to balance it out.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in just a minute. You know, you just mentioned anxiety, which has come up on the podcast several times. So we'll go into that in just a moment. The one thing about the period in time, and again, this 2017, late in the year, is, you know, we met you at that point. It was just like, oh, this gal that lives with Bill is a good climber, and you know, and then it seems like you kind of put the hammer down. after that.
What do you mean, like with my climbing?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I kind of had heard your name because of the trad climbing, a little bit, but I mean, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in terms of my paying attention to you or having you on the Purview Climber Chica, formerly
known as Climber Chica
on Instagram. But I mean, it just feels like, it's like you've got this Edelrid sponsorship, in these moved to Boulder and started coaching in a very serious way. So yeah, am I wrong? Was it just natural? Or did you just like, I'm going to put the hammer down and it's time for me to check this out and like really devote myself to this craft or this thing that I love so much?
It's funny. I actually lived in Boulder before I lived in Vegas.
Okay.
I went to school at CU from 2011 to 2015. And then I started coaching at ABC after I graduated. And that's when I got into trad climbing as well. And I guess that's when I like started to like, not like make a name, but like become more well known just for like my trad success. But then after that, I decided to move to Vegas and focus on sport climbing. And I also coached there as well. Yeah, I guess like after I met you too, like it was kind of like I was in the spot. Like I had just like focused on sport climbing for a while, and I was kind of like, what am I going to do? And like throughout the next like 6 months, I guess I was trying to figure out where my next direction was. And I got the opportunity to come back to Boulder and coach there at ABC again, and took it. And it kind of just like opened up a little bit more for me with like being able to go back to trad climbing, because I had done a lot of trad in the Boulder area and like sport climbing. And I became friends with Sasha, and we went on this trip to Mexico and did a big wall together. So, and I've been doing a bunch of events for Adidas and Edelrid as well. So it just kind of opened up all these opportunities and doors that I didn't know would be opened by moving back to Boulder.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess it just coincided.
Yeah.
With moving back to Boulder and the opportunities. What was sort of the outcome of your stay in Vegas?
The outcome?
Yeah. I mean, what did you pick up there?
What did I learn there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I learned so much about myself in Vegas.
Okay.
I felt like I did have this early success with trad climbing in Boulder, but I always like kind of doubted my abilities in sport climbing. I don't know, like, cause it's just so physical. And I think that like, along with the anxiety, like why I had so much success in trad is because I was like learning how to deal with my anxiety at the same time as I was learning how to trad climb. And a lot of the like same strategies that I would use to deal with my anxiety, I would use while I was trad climbing. Like kind of how you have to like place a piece and like move on and you can't really worry about it. It was like all these things I was like learning about how to deal with my anxiety as well, and like my thoughts and my feelings. So I feel like that, like I just really succeeded at the mental aspect of trad. But I always have doubted my physical abilities. And like, so that's why I was like, when I moved to Vegas, I was like, oh, I really like just need to like train and try to figure out how to become like a better climber in general. And that's when like I started training with Bill. And I actually ended up renting a room from him in Vegas, and he has like this awesome training garage, and he taught me just kind of like the power behind like hard work, and like that hard work leads to success. And so like we do like 12-hour training days and stuff together, and it was like the most rewarding thing. And that's where I found like my real passion for training, and that led to like this enormous passion for coaching too, because I got to like pass on my knowledge to the kids. So it kind of just all like linked together in that way. And I feel like I really learned how to push my physical limits in Vegas. So I think now like coming back, I feel like I like kind of have like a great understanding of how to combine the both of them. So now going forward, like I'm excited to see what happens in my climbing, my trad climbing, sport climbing. Yeah.
So when you went to Vegas, was that on your mind? Like, oh, I'm going to go to this sport climbing kind of
route
mecca and see what happens. And then you lucked into hanging out with Bill.
Yeah, I actually was like thinking I would continue with trad, but like I don't know. I think that like when you focus, like for me, when I focused on trad for a bit, I had some early success. I feel like I kind of got like a little bit of an ego, which I feel like every like professional climber will admit that they get that at some point. My hardest climbing was my trad climbing. Like I hadn't even done. I think I had done like a 13B trad route. And like I hadn't even done like a 13B sport route. And so I was like, I should probably try and like even out my climbing and be like a good, well-rounded climber.
Sure.
So that's when, and like when I started training with Bill, that just kind of got me more psyched, because I could see like the differences from training and from just like putting your head down and working hard. And that's when I just got more excited to like project harder sport routes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's cool because I mean, I have never trained or gotten any training advice from Bill, but I just feel like every time I talk to him, I learn something from the guy.
Yeah, totally.
Like just in life and whatever.
Just
he
like the
knows
motivation
about.
too. Like
for
he's
sure.
just so motivated, and like he kind of taught me too. Like we would train before going climbing outside. We'd go climbing outside, and then we'd hit the gym after. And
Right.
it was like
Wow, I'm getting stronger.
yeah, okay, like this is like intense, but I think that I need that kind of like intensity,
Right.
to feel like I am putting in enough to like deserve the outcome, you know?
Okay, cool. Well, we just blew by a whole bunch of stuff.
I know.
Which is cool. We're gonna circle back now. But let's go to the trad climbing.
Cool.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved to Boulder because I went to school at CU.
Okay. And is that when this part of climbing took off, or were you climbing down in the South too?
I was climbing in the South, and I was like more interested in competitions and stuff and sport climbing outside. But when I moved to Boulder, like I really did think that I would get into competition climbing. But when I was 20, I actually developed this viral thyroid disease. It's called thyroiditis, and it left me just feeling like really awful all the time. Just like felt super tired, super lethargic. Like I had like this thing where my heart would just like race and I'd get palpitations and like feel lightheaded. And so like training and stuff like that just felt so awful. I was training with Robin Erbsfield-Rabatou at the time at ABC, and there were so many training sessions where I would just like break down crying because things that used to feel easy just felt so hard. And competition and like gym climbing really just didn't make me feel that awesome about myself. I was like constantly comparing myself to others and like seeing myself just not do as well, especially from being sick.
Supposed to just keep doing it anyway. For like 5
right?
years until you're super
like,
miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you give up climbing altogether.
And then you just give up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's when like, I guess like shortly after that I graduated and I got the opportunity to learn to trad climb. And I just kind of needed something new in my life that
right,
like
so
I had no expectations.
What does that look like? You got the opportunity to learn how to
Oh, yeah.
climb. Yeah.
Well, there are some guides at ABC.
Okay.
Ryan Arment is one of them. And they decided or they just offered, I guess, to like take me trad climbing and teach me how to place gear. Yeah.
Right on.
So I just went out with them a few times. And my first trad lead was up at Rincon Wall in El Dorado Canyon. It's this route called Center Route. It's a 511, and it was really exhilarating. Yeah. So, and then after that,
before we go on, but like, you know, the Eldo trad is core trad climbing. You know, we're talking about it's not Indian Creek. You know, you're having to look for gear. You know,
and like
use
the
all
placements
different
are
types
specific.
of gear. Yeah, very specific, small nuts. You know, all sorts of stuff. So I mean,
they gave me gear beta for it.
As far as that's concerned, it's a good place to learn how to trad climb.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I think that I was blessed with having them as my mentors because they kind of were just like, oh yeah, you'll be fine on this 511. Like, go for it.
Right.
Like, I didn't know that. Like, sometimes I tell people that, and they're like, 511 was your first like trad climb, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess so.
Just the power of that.
Yeah.
What was the appeal?
I think that I just like wanted something new that I had no expectations with. Along with the thyroid disease, like my anxiety really kicked in then. And that's when I found out that I had an anxiety disorder just because I would just put these expectations on myself. And like I'd go in the gym and kind of be just like waiting for something bad to happen so I could consider it like a bad day. Because like when you feel awful all the time, you're like always judging how you feel based on little things. And it just got me in this really negative mind, like headspace. So I don't know. I think that finding something like trad climbing, it was like this whole adventure that didn't really feel like I had to put pressure on myself.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit further. This is just like an onion we're dealing with.
Peeling
here.
the layers.
You're just like firing through all this stuff.
I'm like,
no, it's perfect. It's what we do here. So what kind of kid were you? I mean, if you're talking about realizing you had an anxiety disorder, you know, it's something you'd had. I just didn't thought
know.
it was normal life.
Yeah.
What everybody was thinking around you, kind of a thing.
And I think, you know, like if you look back like 10 years ago, even like mental health awareness wasn't as prevalent as it is now. It wasn't as openly talked about even just 10 years ago. It's kind of crazy how much like nowadays, like it is like people are breaking the stigma of it.
Right.
But yeah, I actually grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. And then when I was 12, I moved to Atlanta, and that was really difficult for me. I was in the middle of 7th grade, and especially like as a girl, like it was just like I went from being in this small private school with not that many kids in it and everyone knew me to this like massive public school where like the girls were really mean to me and I just didn't fit in. And that's, I think, when like my anxiety started to kick in a lot. I also have a bad habit of pulling my hair out, and that's when that started as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So right, we're talking about pre-diagnosable on that spectrum anxiety type stuff, right? Yeah. So I mean, what was your performance in high school like, or what were you into in high school?
So before I moved to Atlanta, I was into gymnastics. And when I moved there, I like wanted to get into cheerleading, and that didn't go so great. So I decided,
well, if you're looking for mean girls.
Yeah, exactly. Like that was like the worst thing ever.
The cliche movies are, the stereotypes are there for kind of a reason.
No, exactly.
And in a big public school.
Yeah.
The new girl trying to be a cheerleader. Yeah.
And like I felt like where I was at as a kid, like I felt like a kid when I was in Texas. And then when I moved to Atlanta, I felt like all these girls were like trying to be cool and talking about boys. And I felt like I had to grow up really fast.
Right.
So it was hard. But I got into track for a little bit in high school, but I really didn't like it. When I was young, when I was like 9 years old, my dad had taken me to Yosemite for just like an outdoor adventure trip. And I tried top roping there. And I loved it. And there wasn't a gym near our house in Fort Worth, and there wasn't even a climbing gym near our house in Atlanta. So when I was maybe 16, I was like done with track. I was like, I want to do something else. And I had just recently gotten my driver's license, and I was like, I want to join this climbing gym. I know it's far away, but it was like an hour. I'll drive myself on the weekends. And so my parents agreed to that. As time went on, I like convinced them to let me go like every day during the week after school. So
nice.
That's how I got into climbing.
Well, that's a new version of a story I've heard a lot of within climbing, even, in the 70s or whatever. Guests have always talked about how that driver's license was this like passport to like the next wave. I mean, and that's the case for all sorts of things in life. I mean, in terms of being a teenager, getting that thing, a lot of times it's for a lot of kids, it's like, oh, I get to go to more parties, different parties in different towns. But the climbers always talk about how like, boom, I was free to go and do what I wanted to do. And here's this twist where it was like, I'm going to go to a climbing gym that's an hour away and going to make my life centered around that. And it's cool.
Because my parents were like, first of all, like climbing wasn't like something that they understood as a sport. I mean, I feel like it's only recently become so much more widely accepted.
Right, and it's not like you're already in Boulder.
Right, and like it was an hour away. I mean, Atlanta's so bad with traffic. They're like, we're not going to drop you off after school at a climbing gym, Right. So, but...
And what was the scene? I mean, what was this? You had just gone to this giant high school, feeling out of place, lost, mean people. What was the scene at the gym like? Was it part of why you were so drawn to it?
Yeah, it was... I don't know. I felt like a little bit more accepted there. I mean, I definitely still had a lot of insecurities from just like not really feeling like I fit in a lot of my life up until that point. But I definitely made a lot more friends that way. And I kind of just started associating myself more with the people from the gym than my high school friends.
Right.
And like everyone in my high school thought I was so weird for going rock climbing. So it was like whatever.
Right. Like, was that empowering, or did it feed your anxiety?
It was a little bit of both. I feel like it depended on like how I looked at it. I feel like because definitely like I think I missed out on some things with growing with the high school kids, but at the same time I felt like really cool because like I loved climbing, and I felt like, well, you guys should be jealous because this is really awesome that I get to go do this outside on the weekends and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I asked that is because I think a lot of people do feel that. They feel like, oh, I'm like this secret agent that goes and does this rad stuff that you have no idea about.
I started, like, for senior year, I set my schedule so I would go in early and get out early so that I could, like, beat traffic and get to the gym earlier. So,
right on.
Yeah.
Just all about that gym.
I know. I don't know why.
No, I know why. You're telling us why.
I know.
It
Yeah. And there's
became
no
this place.
there's no like climbing outside in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So when we'd go climbing outside, we'd go to like Chattanooga or like Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not busting on it. It was a refuge, and climbing. Again, this
all
is
about that gym.
Well, I mean, it's this twist on a story that I hear all the time. Climbing becomes this refuge from something, and the normal thing that you're supposed to do, in this case as a teenager, some cases as an adult, go get a job, all that sort of stuff. It becomes this avenue where you've escaped that to a certain extent, and obviously to you, whether it was empowering at first, it became very empowering over time. I mean, to create a life path that you're on at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, I get messages from people from high school all the time, like that are like, oh, like I really want to get into climbing. Do you have any tips? And like, so like,
you're
just
like, go to the gym.
Yeah. Or just, go to the gym. No, they're like, or they're just like, so like, oh, I'm like so impressed by what you're doing or whatever. It's cool. It's awesome. It's nice to feel like, that, that it inspires other people. So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, so directly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like we're friends on Facebook from like high school, and I'll just get like Facebook messages. I'm like, wait, who is this person?
No, it's cool. Yeah. Well, they're if you're not friends with them, they go into that other place too. You have to go look for the requests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
don't
Facebook
look
requests.
in there. Don't look in there.
So many of those pending that I'm just like, I don't know.
I don't think so. Her apologies if you're listening right now.
Yeah,
She just doesn't have time to get to them. She'll get to them. So you mentioned for a moment, and I want to, because we're talking about this kind of creation of you as a more confident person. The trad climbing having this weird, and I say weird because it's a little bit counterintuitive to think that you're going to help your anxiety by going out and getting, putting yourself in these maybe possibly anxious, scary situations.
Yeah.
So can you explain that a little bit, how that chemistry worked between the two things?
So I started seeing a psychiatrist for my anxiety, and he took me through this therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT for short. And in it, basically, you try to learn how to defuse from thoughts. Like, even if they're true or not, just try to be able to like unattach from them, and also learn how to like deal with uncomfortable feelings and like make room for them, and try to be able to basically like know that the only thing you can directly control is your behavior. And so as I was practicing these kind of things in everyday life, I kind of realized with trad climbing that was when it became the most intense and like real, if that makes sense. I felt like that was like the biggest test of if I could do it or not,
Right.
Yeah, you have so many thoughts when you're like run out above gear, something that maybe is like not okay, or like you're not sure about the placement. So many thoughts going through your mind, and like you feel like really scared. But to be able to like still like make moves and like control your behavior, and like basically act upon like what you value as opposed to like what's going on in your head or how you're feeling, is like something that I think is really special. So it's kind of just like this really intense version of my therapy, I felt like.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wild. I mean, it's a aversion therapy of sorts. Like, do it in the hardest possible situation.
Yeah.
And everywhere else, it's going to maybe feel easier.
Or just like the most real. Yeah. Because like, I feel like when I am in those situations, like I still have all those thoughts, but it's like I'm never able to like completely detach from them in real life as much as I am in those situations. So I don't know. My thoughts bother me more when I'm like at home in my room than when they do when I'm in a real scary situation climbing. It's like do or die kind of mindset.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how R-rated you get in your in your climbing,
I mean,
but
not all of them. Like, I mean, there were just some scary ascents for sure.
Right.
Like, but definitely, like I've done some like R, and I've done an X-rated route as well. But like, I mean, I feel like you can apply it to all kinds of climbing, because like learning how to take that from just those specific scary situations to sport climbing was kind of a cool thing too, because it wasn't really as much about fear of like falling and hurting myself, but it was more about just like fear of failure.
Right.
So
or like your body's telling you you're tired and you're too weak.
You're tired,
and you didn't train enough. And
exactly.
Right.
Or like learning how to like basically like perform when things don't feel 100% right. Is like learning how to try hard in those situations was like a really big breakthrough for me. And like that really relates to everything else in my life, I feel like, too. Like being able to like keep going even when like my mind is like telling me I can't. So
I mean, it's wild because you're through this psychologist. It's like you walked in the back door to the Rock Warrior's Way.
Yeah, totally, right?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it sounds like a lot like versions of what Arno talks about.
Yeah, I've never actually met him, but I would love to. If you're listening, I'd love to talk to you.
He's here. I'll see.
Sweet.
I'm sure he's here. I'll see.
Yeah,
because
I feel like that totally is what he's all about,
yeah.
too.
I mean, the detachment, the idea of like convincing yourself these thoughts aren't real. This one is like, in deciphering between.
And I think that's what's cool is like, I liked how it wasn't like basically like just trying to be like, oh, just be positive all the time. Because like, I just feel like that doesn't work for me.
Because it's bullshit.
It's just not real. Yeah. So like, I feel like it's awesome to like try to be able to detach from thoughts, even if they're true, even if they're like negative, even if they're positive, or even if they're false, like whatever. Like just trying to be able to actually act upon your values as opposed to anything going on in your head. Yeah. So
are you taking notes
for myself?
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, like what I just said about walking in the back door to the Rock Warrior's Way, I don't know. It sounds like you could be creating your own sort of climbing specific philosophy. I mean, over time, you know, as it works for you, I'm sure there's listeners going like, oh man, that could work for me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Thanks. I try to relate it to, like, I came up with this analogy a while ago where, like, you know, like when you're at the crag and it's a really busy day, there's like a lot of chatter and stuff, and like people are talking and you're like maybe trying to red point your route. It's like you're not going to like stop mid crux and like talk with them, you know, and, like engage in the conversation. But you're also not going to like stop mid crux and be like, hey, shut up, you know? Right. That doesn't do any good for you.
It's happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been told to shut up. But anyway, go ahead.
But like, it doesn't do anything good for you, you know? So like, I try and like relate those voices to people talking as your thoughts.
Okay.
And it's like, you're not going to like try and like engage with those thoughts in that moment because it doesn't do anything for you to engage with them. But it also doesn't do any good for you to try to fight them away. It's like the like pink elephant thing. Like, don't think about a pink elephant. You're going to think about a pink elephant. Trying to fight it and tell it to go away is like almost worse.
Right.
Than like even engaging in it. And so like, I just think like it's important to try to learn how to like let them fade into the background, like your thoughts in your head.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Thanks.
I mean, it's just, again, you have sort of overt methods to do this, or you're working on them, because I think probably a lot of people are armed with the ability to do that to begin with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you look at the spectrum of all these climbers in the world, you know, we can probably point to some certain individuals that clearly have the ability to just like put them so far into the background that they're like they don't exist. But that's not normal.
Right. Yeah.
So everybody's on a spectrum is what I'm getting at with
totally
the ability to do that.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, I think for me, like I have to practice it. And if I don't, then it's hard to just like whip it out. So,
I mean, I'm sure all of us could benefit from practicing it a little bit more in our climbing. And again, what you just while you were talking about the trad climbing, I had already predicted the sport climbing end of it, because that's, you know, the try hard thing for me is tricky. This idea that, okay, I'm weak and everything's telling me to let go. Yeah. And it's hard to not just listen to those thoughts, because
just like fight through it.
Yeah.
Just, like,
fight through it. Exactly.
Yeah. I like that word, like the fight word, because I feel like it is. It's like you're fighting through like all this stuff going on, not just like in front of you and physically, but like in your head too.
Right.
And it's like, that's like so empowering though, when you have those moments, like not even if you like send, but if you have those moments where you're just like completely present and you're fighting. I think that's like the most empowering thing for me in climbing.
Well, so I just thought of a bit of a segue to your coaching end of things, and you'll have to explain not just to me, but to everybody who doesn't live in Boulder what ABC is, but we'll get to that in a second. I mean, you're obviously coaching youth, right? And young girls, and I'm going to say specifically to girls because that's your experience, obviously. Is this something you bring to them in your coaching? This not only these methods, but also maybe the vulnerability of saying like, hey, look at me, I'm not always, you know, on top of my game.
Yeah.
Is that something that you bring in?
I definitely think so. Especially like I was really close with some of the kids that I coached in Vegas. too. And just seeing them go through some ups and downs, it definitely, I think, helps to bring in like, yeah, I'm not perfect, but I still like try hard when I like mess up too. Like, and I think that like being able to show them that like, you know, I spend hours in the gym training for this, like I put in that work, like I think it helps.
Right.
And I think that like, yeah, like trying to relay some of the mental stuff is kind of hard with kids too. They've inspired me because most kids I feel like have just this like really open mind and like they're really curious and like they'll try something over and over again, even if they're failing without feeling like they can't do it.
Yeah,
they
don't bring the baggage. They don't have any baggage yet.
So I feel like that almost helps me in like this like selfish way. I'm like, yeah, like watch them. They're just going to keep trying it. Like I should just do that too.
Right. They don't feel bad.
I feel like I've learned from them and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, you know, it probably depends on the age.
Yeah. I think as you get into like the mid-teens, like they definitely have some mental stuff, but usually like if you just like help them be patient through it, then it's good.
Yep.
I think
puberty's a hell of a drug.
Yeah. And I think that making sure that they're always having fun too is really important with kids.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like striking that balance. When you talked about Bill, you know, teaching you the power of hard work. When I think about youth climbing, you know, and comparing it to gymnastics, like you were into gymnastics, and I see like the kind of dark side of like the professional gymnastics world.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm always wondering, like, are these coaches like helping these kids strike a balance before they get to where you were, where like after a workout you're crying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, are you thinking about that at all with the way you're approaching some of this stuff? Or
yeah,
just,
definitely.
You just watch out for the kids that are hurting?
Everyone at ABC is really on it with that. Like, I think like Robin really like drills into us that like it's really important for them to always have fun, most importantly of everything. And yeah, like if they're not having fun, they're going to get burnt out, you know? But I also think that it's good to, I think it's good to be able to relay some of the mental stuff that I've learned. I'd like to do it more with kids too. Like it's important to keep them open-minded. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have a lot to learn still. Probably.
Yeah, totally.
This is like only a few years.
Yeah, I'm still always learning about like how to deal with my anxiety still.
Right. So tell us what the ABC is, please. We've referred to it a bunch.
Oh, okay. So ABC was started by Robin Erbsfield Rabitou, and it started as a team out of the BRC, and now it's its own gym. And we
BRC being?
Oh, the Boulder Rock Club. Sorry.
That's okay. We're just like, you know, this is worldwide.
Yeah.
So this is all Boulder lingo that if you lived on Pearl Street, we'd know what the hell was going on.
ABC is a gym in Boulder where only kids are allowed. And that's pretty awesome because we coach kids from age 2.5 to 18. So that's really awesome to see their development.
Is there some sort of ceremony when they have to leave?
Ceremony?
when they age
they
out?
They graduated ABC.
And you're just like, goodbye, never come back. Thanks.
No, we always see all the older kids coming back
cool.
and training in the gym, which is cool. But yeah, it's so awesome to see like the age range from 2.5. Like I coach the 2.5-year-olds and I love it. It's so awesome to see them because every little thing is exciting and it just like brings it back to like the core of why climbing is so cool.
Right.
Like to see them like go up halfway up an auto belay at 2.5 years old. It's like, wow, that's like incredible. Like that's
you guys
so tall for them.
Do you accept drop-ins?
For classes, no. But we do have open gym, so that allows like kids to come in on the weekends.
Okay,
so yeah,
cool.
You can pay like $12 and come in.
And I can.
And actually, Sundays from 12 to 6, we allow adults as well too.
Oh, really?
So if you wanted to check out ABC, I mean, honestly, like as an athlete, I feel like it's like the best training facility too. I rarely go to I go to other gyms sometimes just to change it up, but most of the time I'm at ABC training.
Okay.
And so yeah, like I mean, even as an adult, I use all the same equipment, and it's really helpful. There was something else. What were we talking about before that?
We're talking about the name ABC.
Oh yeah, ABC. So America's Best Climbers, or
is that what it's called?
Actually, it's agility, balance, and coordination.
Okay,
is what it means. So I think it's really cool because like a lot of the climbing stuff that we're teaching them is not just so that they can become really good climbers. I think it's really good to have body awareness and gain a lot more athleticism from it. So.
Nice.
Yeah. And to learn to just like be more confident in themselves. I feel like it really breeds confidence in young kids to be able to like do something on their own. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to this idea that at some point in the last couple of years, you sort of put the hammer down on your training and on what you wanted to be as a climber. let's do a little spray session and talk about just talk about your climbing.
Oh, sick.
Specifically, what you've been up to and some of the goals that maybe you've achieved through the stuff we've been talking about, through this mental training, through your physical training, moving back to Boulder. What's your climbing look like these days?
Right now, I'm projecting something in Boulder Canyon that is a trad route, though it's pretty hard for me. I don't like to get too specific with my projects.
That's fine. No, I'm not talking about that. Let's just talk about like what you've been up to. You mentioned you mentioned a trip down to
Mexico. Yeah. So in February, I moved back to Boulder in September of 2018, and I was doing a lot of events throughout the fall, like clinics and stuff, which was cool. But then in February, Sasha DeJulian and I, she's also an Adidas athlete, we went to El Salto, Mexico, and we went on a sport climbing trip there because we'd heard the sport climbing was so great. But we ended up actually doing a big wall there, and it was my first big wall.
Right on.
And it was like, I think it was 13 pitches, and it was a 13A, and Alex Honnold and Chris Widener had gotten the first ascent of it, like, I can't remember how long ago, 2000 something. But it was kind of cool. Like the rock down low was really chossy on the route. So it was a little scary. But then like after that, the pitches got harder and the rock quality got better as you went higher. And yeah, it was my first big wall. I was not prepared. I didn't even like have the right, like I was wearing my sport climbing harness and had to borrow helmets. And it was definitely a lot more suffering than that I'd ever experienced. But Sasha did great. She onside-ed it. It was really cool to see.
Nice.
I struggled up it, but it was still really fun. It was a great experience.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what did you bring to the table in terms of the partnership?
That's a good question. So like when we got to one of the harder pitches, it was this 12D. I decided to lead it and went up and took like a massive whip and lowered back down, and Sasha and I talked, and I told her that she should go for the lead and I'd top rope or follow, and I followed and fell again, and then she was like, oh, do you want to like lower back down and do it? And I was like, no, like we were starting to lose a little light. We still had like maybe 3 more pitches after that of like harder climbing, and I was just like, no, like I think we should just like keep going. And so basically like after that, like I just kind of like went into this mode of like support, and I was just like, she was like, I don't know, like we're gonna have to wrap through the night, should we go down? And I was like, no, like you can send this, like you should totally go for the onsite. And so she actually ended up doing the last pitch by headlamp, which was sick. It was the crux pitch. It was the hardest pitch. I was just like pulling on gear to get up, or the last couple pitches, just like trying to get up there so that she could finish it. Right. And it was this cool thing. And like she also too, like was totally there for me as a partner, like not judgmental and not like, because I didn't know anything, and she knew that going into it, for her to be like 100% patient throughout the whole time, because like I really didn't know what I was doing, especially rope management. I think I short roped her
like
a couple
big
times.
multi-pitch climb.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I definitely short roped her, because I'm like, rope management, like what
hard.
do I do? Yeah. But she was just so patient and taught me so much.
I don't use a gree on multi-pitch for that very reason.
Because it's so easy to short rope.
It's too hard. Yeah, you need 3 hands.
Yeah.
If the rope's not laying on the ground, if it's coiled over your lap or whatever, you need 3 hands.
Yeah, no, all the belays were hanging. Man, I had the most massive...
No, I stopped using gree on big routes like that.
I had the most massive bruises on my hips after that, because we were both wearing like the thinnest sport climbing harnesses. Yeah. Because that's what we thought we were doing.
So
on
you
the
guys
trip.
didn't like spend night on it or anything like that?
No, we spent 14 hours on the wall.
Okay.
But when we got down, luckily, actually Robin Rabitou and Didier, her husband, were in Mexico at the same time. Right. And Didier had dropped us off that morning. Then he actually came back to pick us up and waited for like a couple hours at the base to drive us back. Thank God, because we were completely out of water. It was like a couple miles back to the campsite. And it was like 11:30 at night. So it was like, thank you, Didier. He saved the day.
Yeah. I couldn't tell because I was like big wall on my head's overnight. That kind of things. Yeah. So
I guess, yeah.
I just kind of, when I was reading about it, I'm like, there was things that like, I'm like, well, why were they in such a hurry when they're just like, maybe they go back to Portaledge or something. So anyway, just clearing that up.
We didn't even have a Portaledge because we were on a sport climbing trip.
Yeah, it's a big route. Yeah. Right.
So we were just like, we'll get this done. We also had a photographer with us that didn't really know how to jug that well. So it took a lot longer than we thought.
Right. Climbing at night is like, is very hip right now. It's very hot.
Yeah.
climbing at night. So,
Yeah. Well, rappelling at night is kind of scary.
yeah. Not kinda. I mean, it's
really
probably
scary.
rappelling anything steep is also terrifying.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so-
You get stuck in space. You're
Yeah.
like, what do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, you could call it multi-pitch big
Right,
wall.
right.
I don't know. It was the biggest thing that I had ever climbed. And, yeah, I mean, the only other multi-pitches I've ever done were like 2 or 3 pitches.
Right.
So I was like, okay. Like,
Right.
yeah. It
Yeah. So when you were trad climbing,
was like 450 meters. I don't know.
you were very sort of
Single pitch.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like project specific.
Yeah.
Kind of,
And more like head pointy kind of stuff.
yeah. Get it all sorted out.
Sort it out
Yeah.
and then like, oh, it's scary, but like, you know, the gear
Right,
and
right.
you just have to execute.
Cool.
Which I liked because it was like, then it was really just a test of can you do this mentally?
So did this thing in Mexico get you sort of stoked for future big
Yeah.
routes?
Yeah. I definitely would like to do more. I definitely think it's like a lot of suffering and like,
Yeah, but you could minimize it if you approached it
If I
a little
approached
more
it better.
appropriately. Yeah.
totally. But it was funny. Like I was talking with Sasha after we got back down and I was like, because we were talking about, because she just did like 3 514 big
I mean, she
walls
should have better.
last
Yeah,
summer.
I was about to say that. Like, she should have known better. But I guess
About what?
well, just the harness and stuff. But I guess the
Oh
point
no,
is,
we
is
didn't
you
know.
weren't ready. Yeah,
we
you
didn't
weren't-
know we were going to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
not
didn't have the
like
gear.
it wasn't any of our faults. We just didn't
She
know.
can't just call Red Bull and have them like chopper
Dude,
some
El
stuff
Salto,
in.
Mexico.
Just
Like,
chopper it in.
oh my god, you're crazy. But
One of their stunt planes drops
no,
it
she.
or
So
something.
like last summer, she did like 3
Five
514
paraglides
big
in
walls.
with it. I don't know.
And so I was like, well, how did you like man, like after like a day of this, like how did you like ever want to do this again? No offense. Like, you know, you're so tired. She was like, yeah, like every time I would get back from like a day, it'd be like so exhausted. Like I'd be like, oh, I'm never doing that again.
Right.
And then she'd be like, oh, I wake up the next day. I'm like, all right, let's go for it.
Yeah.
It's just like funny how your mind like recovers. You're like,
No, you have to have that.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The suffering thing makes
Yeah.
it all go away for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, you should get up on in a portaledge because that's even better.
Yeah, I actually have
waking
been
up
on a
and
portaledge before,
Right.
but I've never like I went up on a portaledge
Right.
on like El Cap, but like never. I haven't like done actually a route on there, which would be
Yeah.
cool to do. Though.
But like waking up days and days into it, just so exhausted. And the
Yeah.
first thing you do when you open your eyes is see like the next pitch that you need to climb that morning. It's definitely like
it's probably
it's like
it's so much endurance, like
Yeah.
mental endurance.
yeah, it's pretty.
I think that's like the
pretty
most
hardcore.
impressive stuff is like seeing when people like mentally and physically and emotionally can endure something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely would like to get into it in the future.
Right. So nothing planned.
Nothing planned. Maybe like something in Yosemite though next summer. I
Right.
don't know. Nothing planned as of now.
Yeah. What about El Gigante? You ever heard of that thing?
No, what's that?
Ah, look into it. It's a
All right,
big. It's
homework.
a big route down in Chihuahua, but way more remote than a place like El Salto.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of women have done it either. I don't know if
That'd be sick.
I can't. Don't get me. I'm not. This is not like at my fingertips, but I can't think of any that I know of that's done a free ascent of logical progression, which is the 20-some pitch route on their 13 something. It changes a little bit as the rock changes a little
Yeah.
bit. But yeah, look into that. That'd be pretty awesome. It's probably not as sustained, but it's longer than the thing in El Salto, and it's way more like out in the wilds.
Yeah.
So
That would be really cool.
yeah, put that in your noggin.
I'll lock it on in there.
I like to give Sasha DeJulian, who I've never met, tons of advice on this show. So
What?
never mind. The listeners will understand that one. I told her to start trad climbing on like episode 8, like 8 years ago.
And did she listen?
I don't know. I mean, she trad climbs now.
She does,
There
yeah.
you go. So
Yeah.
I don't know if she ever heard it, but it was on the Steph Davis episode, I believe.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, because I was wondering like who was gonna like step into Steph's shoes. This was 7 or 8 years ago.
Gotcha.
Like the next woman, super intent trad climber, because Steph's, her she's moved into all these flying and all this sort of
Totally,
stuff.
yeah.
So that was the conjecture. I was, what about this Sasha? And I didn't even know how to pronounce her last name. Person, because 8 or 9 years ago,
Right, yeah.
So apparently she listened. So in terms of looking back at yourself in 7th grade, is that when you moved to Atlanta?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you said? And now, therapy and methods for dealing with this. What's your assessment of like your anxiety and your self-image
I think like
compare, like, give us an idea of where you're feeling about your place.
Well, I mean, anxiety, I feel like is something that you never like really overcome. So I still am like learning a lot about myself, but I also have this, like, I used to always just think of it as a negative, but I also think that like, I don't think I would have gotten into trad climbing if I didn't have anxiety. And I also think that like part of my anxiety is I like obsess over things. And I think that using the like obsessive qualities of myself to focus on training and projects actually really has helped, especially with sport climbing, because that was kind of like how I related to Bill a little bit, is because he can be very obsessive too. Learning to channel those thoughts into something like that, it felt like a strength, you know? So.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. It's like, the rest of us could use a little more obsessiveness sometimes when it comes to getting things done.
I definitely overdo it sometimes.
Right.
Try to like pack way too many things.
Had you had any trouble with injury? I mean,
I haven't.
It sounds like a little bit of a recipe.
No, yeah. I've been really lucky, knock on wood, but I haven't really had any serious injuries. Last fall, I like sprained my MCL, but of course I wasn't even climbing when I did that. So it lasted about a couple months. Oh. No, I slipped on some ice and just fell in a really awkward way.
Right.
Besides that only lasted like a couple months, and then I've been fine. I guess I'm blessed in that way. Right. To not have had any finger injuries or anything.
Are you pretty dedicated at this moment to, seeking like a professional path with climbing?
Yeah, totally.
In the sort of footsteps of someone like Sasha?
Yeah, 100%. She is a very close friend of mine and like super inspiring and very supportive person. And I definitely think that now that I have like all this experience with trad and sport, I think that right now I want to focus more on trad.
Oh, you're back on the trad
Back on the trad regiment right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because like I just moved back to Boulder, and so I like did this route up at Rincon again, because like Rincon's like one of my favorite places ever since I started trad climbing, called Frayed Line. And it just like got me really excited to trad climb again. It's like this 13A, and it's super thin and like a bit run out, a bit spicy. But and it was my first trad route in like years. But it totally got me stoked to like do some more scary trad. So.
I just thought of something else I wanted to ask you about. What are these guys that brought you out and put you on on center route?
Yeah.
What are the? I mean, you got to be pretty impressive in their minds. Like, what's their thoughts on how you've become this like gnarly single pitch drag climber?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, like I climb with Ryan still. Yeah, I think they're like impressed and like proud probably. And I owe them a lot because they taught me how to like place gear and everything. But that center route was like my first route, and then my second trad route was actually just to the left of center route. It's called the Evictor.
Oh man. That was your second trad route.
Yeah, and I took a massive whip on it.
I bet you.
But then Ryan and I went out the next day and sent it, which was cool.
That's cool.
And it was really funny. I actually have a funny story with this one.
Hold on a second before you tell your funny story.
Right.
The Evictor is like
I don't even know if I want to tell this.
No, you do now.
Okay.
It's too late. But the Evictor is something that people work up to as a very big milestone kind of trad lead. So I just want to I'm not telling you that because you know that. I'm telling the listeners that because not everybody knows about Eldo, but it's definitely a feather in the cap type route that you kind of like, all right, let me get after that thing eventually. So number 2 is trad climbs is pretty rad.
Thanks.
Yeah. So anyway, tell your funny story.
Okay, so like I was really excited that I did the Evictor and like posted about it on Facebook, and I had like maybe like a few months before that I'd met Alex Honnold and we'd become friends, and he like commented on my post about doing the Evictor, and he was like, wow, congrats, that thing's really hard. And I was like, oh my god, Alex Honnold just commented on my Facebook post, like I'm so cool. Like he never comments on anything, and I was like feeling really proud of myself. And then maybe like a week later Alex texts me and he goes, oh, you did the Evictor? I thought you did this route called Beethoven's Fifth in Boulder Canyon, which is way harder. So it's like
how the hell did he confuse those two
I know.
things?
And it's like basically like
exactly
an uncongratulations. So I was like, thank you so much for messaging me. So I
thought about it all week.
Yeah, all week.
Should I message her and tell her that I'm not impressed anymore?
So
I don't want her going around thinking I'm impressed with her when I'm not.
I know. I was like, gee, thanks.
But again, how could he mix those two up?
I don't know. But then I was like, wow, like Beethoven's Fifth sounds cool.
Oh,
So-
la la, ooh la la.
So I went out and I did Beethoven's Fifth.
Sick.
And I was the first female to climb it, actually.
What's
which
that
was
all
cool.
about?
What's the route about?
Yeah.
It's this 12D up at Bell Buttress in Boulder Canyon, but it's like got this like really big run out at the top where the crux is, and it's like kind of easier climbing until the crux, and then like you place some gear and you're like, like it's pretty run out, massive fall potential. Took that fall, it was great.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
But like,
So you're not just like getting these things, dick down to where you're never going to fall off of them. You're like,
no,
yeah,
I definitely like. I mean, unless it was like something that I couldn't fall. But
right,
yeah.
where you'd hit the ground kind of thing.
But like,
you're not afraid of some
and
airtime.
that fall, like everyone knows that fall. It's like pretty big.
Right.
But yeah, like I think I like spent like a few days working on it and took that fall, and then I think the next day out I sent. So it was
Right.
cool. And I totally posted about that one on Facebook too, and I tagged Alex in it. I was like, thanks, Alex, for the recommendation.
Did you hear anything?
He commented and he was like, haha, congrats, that thing's like really cool. I don't know, he said something like lame, but it was like at least he acknowledged.
Sweet. You're trolling Alex Honnold.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It was really funny. This is like 2015,
I do it all the time and he never responds. So
and I was like, I just gotta tag him in this.
Nice.
So that he knows.
Nice.
Now I've done it. I'm worthy.
you have his phone number. You should have just texted him.
Yeah, I can't remember if I did. I don't think
Here's
I did.
what you really should do is say it
I
on
was more
air.
passive aggressive than that. So.
Right on. That's legit. Trolling should be more passive aggressive.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it sounds really good. I mean, looking at the future now, part of the change that I saw after we met was that like, oh, here's this woman who's pursuing climbing as a professional career. The coaching fits in there, but also the sponsorships and things like that. What do you sort of bring to the table, do you think, in terms of what you do for your sponsors?
I do a lot of.
Your Instagram takeovers.
What the heck? Don't bag on me. What the heck?
Now that was a reference to before we started. She was concerned about the requirements that she does an Instagram takeover. Of which, what did you take? What are you taking over?
I'm taking over the Edelrid, the Team Edelrid Instagram account, but
It'll come out in the future, so you'll have to go back to
I
this
haven't
period
started
in time.
yet. I'm
Yeah.
about to start after this.
Yeah, today is June 16th, so you'll have to go back to that week and see what happened. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So I do a lot of events for sponsors too. I've written some articles as well for magazines, teaching clinics. I just recently did one of my first longer speeches, which was like an hour-long speech at the Mountaineers in Seattle.
You don't have anxiety.
Yeah,
What are
I
we
do.
talking?
What are you talking about?
I'm just like, in terms of like the spectrum of things that make people anxious, like
I know.
talking in front of people
I actually
for an
really
hour.
like talking. Maybe
Oh, really?
I think that I guess I must just like things that really challenge
public
me.
speaking.
Like because
Okay.
I get nervous for
All right,
sure.
all right.
But like but then after I feel so like fulfilled, you know.
Right,
So
okay.
I guess I just must like things
Sorry,
that
I'm
like,
just
challenge
giving you a
that
hard time.
because it's like yeah, it makes it really real in that moment. But yeah, and that was the first speech that I was really open to about my anxiety and like how tough it is for me. And it was such a positive response too. And it was really cool to see like I had like a 16-year-old girl come up to me after and just be like, I came to see you because I have anxiety as well and I just wanted to talk to you about it. And it was really awesome.
Cool.
It's like so rewarding. Yeah. I think that like in long-term goals for something that I could do for climbing, I would love to do something with mental health awareness in
Okay.
climbing and like having like a space for people to talk. I think that would be like one of my big goals. Yeah. That's not like a climb, to do.
Right on.
So
What are your outlets right now if people want to follow what you're up to?
so I have Instagram. It used to be Climber Chica.
Right.
But now my handle is molly.mitchell. Just changed it recently. And then I have Facebook too. I think my Facebook page is still Climber Chica. It's like facebook.com/Climber Chica. And then I do write articles and stuff. I have an article coming out for the Mountaineers as well in their quarterly magazine.
Okay.
Because the response from the speech was so positive, they wanted me to write an article about my anxiety and growth as a climber. So that's going to come out soon. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for sitting down.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was awesome to be here.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we reconnected because once again, I definitely remember that night as being super fun, and you were a big part of that. Just
Thanks.
hanging out and
that means
chatting.
so much to me.
Yeah, we had a good time. So.
That means a lot. I think it's to me, it's a huge honor to hear that. So thanks.
All right, folks, thanks for listening, and thanks to Molly for sitting down. Really enjoyed talking with her and reconnecting after a couple years. And it's also cool to hear from a different breed of trad climber, not some crusty dude with a 1,000-yard stare, but somebody coming out of the gyms but getting stoked on trad climbing is a little bit rare out there. And just layering on some sport climbing for power, she's going to be unstoppable. And I've told that to anybody who would listen for the last decade or more, that if you really want to push your trad climbing beyond that plateau that you sort of hit naturally, then you got to turn to sport climbing, even if you're a dyed-in-the-wool traddy, or bouldering for that matter. Those things are going to put power on top of all that gear placing knowledge that you have and get you through some of those steep cruxes that you run into on harder trad climbs. And besides, you can go out and sport climb and take really big whippers, which can get you ready to climb above gear on trad climbs. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents, and Molly's as well, I think. Also, pretty immediately after the interview, I remembered that at least Stephanie Baudet had climbed El Gigante with the French team, including her husband Arnaud Petit, and likely some other women have done it, frankly. So, still would be a fun objective for the likes of Molly and anybody else who wants a pretty big, cool adventure relatively close to the lower 48, just down there in the lower part of Chihuahua. So check it out. Yes, we're about to start September, so even though it's going to be hotter than it used to be, get out there, try hard, do your best, and of course, check your knots.
Got very good arms.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable. You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.